Hello there.
This is where the fun begins.
What's going on, guys? Unofficial Star Wars here. Hope you're all doing well. And in today's video, we have an interesting Star Wars news update for the Mandalorian timeline and the overall Mandoverse here. So, without further ado, we're going to hop right on into it. QI'RA from Solo, A Star Wars Story is now on the talks, reportedly, and rumors, of course, to appear somewhere within the Mandalorian timeline. It could be the Ahsoka show, could be Boba Fett Season 2, could be Mando Season 3 or 4. We just don't really know. Could even be Rangers of the New Republic. I should also mention it's very interesting to see this go from a theory, seeing just fans kind of bring it up, saying, hey, this would kind of be cool. She could very well, it probably is still alive in this time period during the Mandalorian universe and during the events after Return of the Jedi, of course. So seeing that kind of continuation of her story, and especially with Crimson Dawn, I think a lot of Star Wars fans would absolutely love, and it's something I also feel like is all kind of overdue. Let's hop right on into it. We're going to read from the director's article. It's been 4 years since Solo, A Star Wars Story already was released in theaters, and it leaves behind a complicated legacy. The film is the first Star Wars project to bomb at the box office, leading Lucasfilm and Disney to assign blame to things like oversaturation and the recasting of iconic characters. Despite the movie's poor performance, Solo was actually been well received by Star Wars fans, inspiring many to campaign for a sequel. There's no doubt that Solo was intended to be the first part of a larger story for Han and his friends. Director Ron Howard has shared his willingness to return for more, though that decision ultimately sits at the hands of Disney overall. One project in the background does seem to have potential to pick up the threads from the film. As a Disney Plus series, Lando will see Donald Glover return to the role for more adventures when his schedule does allow. I have a news update about the overall Lando show. Yes, very exciting. I am very hyped actually for that show, so stay tuned for that. Hit the subscribe button and notification bell to be notified for when that video does come out. Also, for those of you that could be confused by the whole bombing of the box office and why Solo kind of performed very poorly there, is really sincerely for the overall The Last Jedi and the backlash from that film. Also, yes, and the, I guess, overall oversaturation and the whole idea of recasting very iconic and popular characters such as Lando Calrissian and Han Solo. Don't get me wrong, however, those performers did absolutely amazing and I loved it. The article goes on to continue to say the most interesting new character Solo gifted fans with Emilia Clarke's QI'RA, the feminine fatal who ultimately chose to stay with Crimson Dawn, crime syndicate, and learn from Maul. QI'RA made a shocking return to Star Wars in the War of Bounty Hunter comics miniseries, and her story continues in Crimson Reign as she seeks to destroy the Sith. But what of her future on the screen is actually there? The man who helped create her hopes to see the character joins the Mandalorian universe and its narrative. A recent interview with Screen Rant at Star Wars Celebration with writer John Kasdan spoke confidently about the chances of seeing Solo's story being continued, specifically with Emilia Clarke's QI'RA. And something I would also like to mention is that QI'RA was really theorized by a lot of fans that she would appear somewhere in the Book of Boba Fett, so it does make sense and it's cool to see this being rekindled as well. The reason for that is that there's a lot of different connections that go on within the War of Bounty Hunters and Boba Fett and QI'RA, so there is that connection that we could have seen later on in the Star Wars narrative of the Mandoverse with the Book of Boba Fett Season 2 potentially, but more than likely maybe the Mandalorian Season 3 somewhere. In the quote from John Kasdan, who is one of the writers for Emilia Clarke's QI'RA, he says, in quotes, "I think we are. I think someday we're going to see what happened and how QI'RA sort of advanced through the world and through the crime syndicates," ending quote right there. Kasdan noted that he's discussed continuing QI'RA's story with the Mandalorian writer Jon Favreau, a fan of the film himself. He says, "I've talked to Jon Favreau about it, and he's a big fan of Solo, and some of the stuff we built out. And I said, well, you're the guy to figure this stuff out. I always look to him to keep the story alive and keep it going," ending quote there. So, seeing that this writer of, I guess, John Kasdan had spoke with Jon Favreau, this makes everything a whole lot more likely. It makes everything 10 times more likely. However, what I do like is that this wouldn't be used as fan service. If you have Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni up to this, they're going to find a reasonable way to continue the story and continue on and expand with the story. It could be something as simple as a reference, I believe. It wouldn't necessarily be a whole character appearance or something like that if it doesn't fit Jon Favreau's and Dave Filoni's story of what the Mandoverse is really supposed to be. Now, if for anything, I would believe that these two writers, directors, and producers, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, would take the story of QI'RA and expand it into a sequel for Solo, continuing along with that timeline, because there is a whole nother story right there. Seeing QI'RA working with a live-action Darth Maul is something that I would kill to see. As the article goes on to say, with the vastness of the current Star Wars storytelling, Kasdan seems room for another Solo characters to make their mark on upcoming adventures. He says, Star Wars is going in so many fun directions, and specifically, I saw that trailer for Andor today, and I thought, well, Enfai's nest is gonna show up somewhere in that show, so I'm hopeful that a lot of those people continue the journeys they were on. Ending the quote right there. That is a good point that he does bring up. Having Enfai's nest show up in the Andor show, it would make a lot of sense, seeing that it's being set along the whole timeline with Solo, a Star Wars story. This leads me back to what I said about Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni continuing the story, maybe not specifically with the Mandalorian universe, but maybe potentially within its own timeline of where the first movie for Solo was taking place, a Solo sequel, a movie or a Disney Plus series, much like the Lando Disney Plus series that we're supposed to be getting. And as I had mentioned, seeing that the Andor show and the Solo show are taking place so very closely together, there's a huge possibility that these two characters could run into one another, especially with the beginning of the rebellion and its uprising. Oh, when the question is asked, will QI'RA make a Disney Plus comeback? Well, here's what the article has to say. Lucasfilm clearly has its plans for QI'RA, and that's something that I'm very, very hopeful for and looking forward to in my own thoughts and opinions. As the article goes on to say, as she's a pivotal player in the aforementioned Marvel comic lines set after The Empire Strikes Back and between Return of the Jedi with War of the Bounty Hunters. Writer Charles Soule trilogy of miniseries is scheduled to end later in the year with The Hidden Empire, which should give fans a better idea of QI'RA's future. That is, if she can survive the wrath of Darth Vader and the Emperor within this comic book series. In the lead up to the Book of Boba Fett, the prevailing theory that was QI'RA and Crimson Dawn would have revealed as the main antagonists for the show. However, as we know, this was proved to be untrue, as Boba instead went up against the Pike Syndicate and Cad Bane to establish freedom for the city of Mos Espa. Boba Fett's changes and challenges in the present day never took him off Tatooine, though by the end of the season hinted at his desire to pursue something else, possibly Mace Windu and his sweet revenge for this Jedi Master that had killed his father. Boba Fett was initially billed as a limited series, but the popularity of the character and phenomenal viewership numbers will certainly have Disney and Lucasfilm considering more journeys for the character. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni seemed keen on maintaining Fett as one of the key players in the Mandoverse, so he can be expected to appear again sooner than later, perhaps as early as The Mandalorian Season 3 in February of 2023. It's worth noting that Favreau isn't just a fan of Solo, but also played a part in it. The writer and actor lent his voice for the role of Rio Durant, who unfortunately met his fate fairly on in the film. Any discussions with Jon Kasdan about continuing the story of QI'RA and other Solo characters can only be a good thing, and the executive producer's pre-existing connection to that story bodes well with the inclusion of Crimson Dawn and the group's mysterious leader as the Mandoverse expands. And by the time of the Mandoverse, it wouldn't really necessarily be Maul. So if for anything, it would be QI'RA. She softly seems to be a key player and is working closely with Maul, is something that we had learned at the end of Solo. It definitely feels inevitable at this point that they're gonna have to continue her story within the Mandoverse, especially with all the setup not only in the Book of Boba Fett show, with kind of bringing up the whole idea of syndicates and that being a thing with crime syndicates and still kind of roaming around in the galaxy, and how there really isn't any order or control within the galaxy, especially right now. There's no Empire, there's no Republic, there's no Separatist or anything like that. There's no really, I guess, rebellion or anything like that. There are Rangers of the New Republic, of course, so there is like a New Republic type of thing going on here. Although even then, that's pretty weak, and honestly, it can be easily overpowered by other syndicates. Well, crime syndicates, that is. And of course, there's also the whole setup between Boba Fett and QI'RA in the War of Bounty Hunters comic book series, which I would highly recommend, although myself, I haven't really currently looked into those all that much. So the two characters definitely know of each other. Let me know of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. I'd absolutely love to hear what you guys all think. The continuation of QI'RA and her story is an inevitable thing, I do believe, so let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below, and as well as maybe a potential Solo 2 sequel, what you guys are hoping and expecting to see from the Lando Calrissian series on Disney Plus. I'd absolutely love to know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoy it, as it really just the channel, and check out our Instagram, official Star Wars, more Star Wars and content, guys. Thanks so much for watching today's video. As always, may the Force be with you. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.